Hello again and welcome to another Mordian Glory video. Today I am joined by my ever salty partner in crime. It is the man, the myth, the admiral. It is Mr. Simon. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm all good. You?
Feeling all right. Feeling a little bit sore, struggling to sit down after the destroying you gave me recently. So for those that are joining us, today is going to be a bit of an after-action report, but mostly a discussion of our recent Codex stress test, which we did as kind of a battle report, but we were playing with quite open hands and stuff. If you've not seen that video, please check it out. I'll make sure to link to it down in the description below because we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff that came up in there. Basically, Simon and I have done a couple of Codex stress tests now. We've done a couple of battle reports on them. We've done a couple of, this is going to be our second after-action report kind of thing on it. And it's been great for learning where the line between theory hammer and real hammer meets, what looks good on paper and what actually works on the tabletop. And the first one we did, and I'm just shameless plug here mentioning it, but definitely you should check it out. If I can try and get some more links down in the description, I'll make sure that's the case. We did guard on guard, and we had mech versus recon. I was recon, Simon was mech, and we did a little after action deep dive, thoughts on that. And then this time we did guard versus Necron, so we thought we'd give the guard a run for the money, and we went for Necron Star Shatter, or as I like to say, Arse Shatter, because it's very, very good. And so what we're going to be doing today is breaking down, because Simon obviously is a guard player as well. We're going to be breaking down our thoughts, our impressions of the Guard Codex now that we've had a couple of games with it. Also focusing on things like combined arms attachment. Is it good? Is it bad? How's it changed? And just generally where we think the power of the Guard is. We'll be touching on other topics. We might touch upon Necrons a little bit, but it's mostly going to be Imperial Guard focus. And I think it's important that we also at some point talk about how important it is to have experience with a list, because I think that was a big factor in one of our games that we'll get to later. So that's the briefing. Let's march everyonewards into the video proper. And I'm going to start off with a question for Simon. Simon, what did you think of the combined arms attachment index versus codex iteration?
Well, your infantry actually died, which is not. So that was quite novel for me, to be honest. After God knows how many games in 10th, actually being able to kill a squad. So that was a whole new world. That
so it's never been done. It's never been done.
And they didn't come back. So that's like, oh, hang on a sec. For me, I think the first thing, I mean, the orders that you can throw around, there's some fantastic combos in there, and the lineup where you can give a tank and an infantry, regiment and a what do you call it?
You can have regiment and squadron orders.
Yeah.
Translate.
Yeah.
So the regiment unit gets the order from the tank and keeps its original order, and the tank gets the order from the regiment unit and keeps its original order. So you're like double stacking orders on 2 units.
Yeah. I thought that was brilliant. Really like that. Really, I thought that was really, really fluffy, and also, really competitive. It's a competitive strategy. I really like that. Not as sticky, I think, is the infantry blobs actually died.
Yes, absolutely.
So that was the biggest one for me. Was actually I could shoot an infantry blob and it would go die as you would expect it to, instead of still being there 4 turns later.
Yeah, I think so pretty much do all of 10th edition up to this point, about 18, probably longer now, but let's say about 18 months, probably maybe 20 months. I have been relying on a 20-man blob with a 5-up feel no pain. And it doesn't seem like a lot, but my God, it's so sticky. And you sort of think it's normal for guardsmen to be that sticky until you don't have that anymore. And infantry, like I would say, anytime I had a 20-man blob with no command squad in there, it got swept aside in a heartbeat. I actually needed the extra 5 models from the command squad to basically have an infantry blob that didn't get wiped out. And even then, it went down to like 4 people, but then it at least could regrow some of the special weapons back into it, with like the medic and whatnot. But yeah, infantry blobs are very, very fragile now, and I know a lot of people are going to groan and bemoan, but I think you need 100 infantry minimum, probably 120. That doesn't mean you
Yeah.
need, they don't need to all be 20-man squads. I'm talking you probably want 4 25-man squads to get to your 100, or 5 25-man squads.
So I think the thing is there less? I was thinking about this over the weekend. Is there less of a requirement for having command squads in those? I know you said that actually gives you more bodies but actually, it is that investment. Are you better off just having more infantry?
I think the problem is that a squad that gets completely wiped out is completely goners. A guard
Yeah,
squad that goes down to, let's say, 4 people and then is able to regrow 2 of them is actually basically just all bite at that point, because you're going to have medic. Okay, the medic's the only guy is going to have
no,
right
yeah,
good,
yeah,
fair
yeah.
enough. But then everyone else is going to have a plasma pistol or a plasma gun or a melter gun, and so it's actually going to be able to do damage. They're probably not going to survive the next turn, but at that point, getting 2 turns with the damage output from them in a 5-turn game, they've made it 40% of the way through. That's not
That's
too
good.
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the other way, and I look, I love infantry, guys. The infantry core. I won't put Simon through it. I won't put Simon through it. Every day in the core. Anyway,
Oh,
I think peak combined arms is probably less infantry, more mechanized.
yes, yeah,
I think you're gonna. I think you could maybe have like 1 or 2 blobs of infantry, and then 4 units of mechanized, or you just go full send and you go traditional mech, 6 units of infantry and transports, probably 5 chimeras, 1 Taurox these days with the way the points are, and the rest is your tanks and your artillery. I think that is combined arms.
it's very combined. To be fair,
It is.
tanks, artillery, transport, and mech. What more could you? Couldn't be any more combined if you tried.
Literally couldn't. That's true. But yeah, I think guard infantry. I think a lot of guard players are going to be in for a rude awakening when they take the 20-man blob led by like a Castellan, and they're
Yeah,
like, well, back in the day, this would go on an objective and it'd hold it for 2 turns.
yeah, yeah,
And now they're going to go out there and the enemy's going to sweep it aside and still have the firepower left over to go other places.
yeah. Definitely. I think that was that. The difference between, all right, a buffed up Doomsday Ark in Star Shatter is like very different from a Rogal Dorn in mechanized assault. But
Mm,
I actually went, after the first time of shooting one of your infantry blobs, I went, oh my god, I've killed most of it. What's
yeah.
I've been used to picking up 3 or 4, and then the bastards coming back all the time. You know, right the way back from the start of 10th with those Krieg blobs where you have to 5 up and feel no pain and take cover and blah blah blah, blah and you sat there with a 20-man blob with a 4 up cover save plus 5 up field. That's nowhere near that anymore. So yeah,
Yeah.
you definitely need an awful lot more warm bodies.
I think it's important to acknowledge a couple of factors here, because we don't want people to be getting disheartened. We're not saying that guard infantry is dead. No, no, not at
No,
all.
no, no.
Not at all. I'm still going back and looking at that footage again. I felt like my infantry was doing a lot of heavy lifting. It wasn't around for a long time, but it was doing a lot of heavy lifting. So I still think that, as I've maintained for a long time, it always comes down to the infantryman and his rifle. It always comes down. Infantry wins games. A lot of some people don't agree with that, but that's something I believe, and I think it's still the case. But it's, if you're going into this thinking your infantry is going to work the same as it did, it's not. We're in a codex now, not an index. Things
No.
have changed. People, I know, guys. We don't like change. The only thing wargamers hate the game not changing because it's unbalanced is it changing at all. Okay, we know this, right? But I think you are going to have to get used to thinking about your guard infantry. It's going to do the same job, but it's going to need different tools to do that job, like more numbers or more mechanized.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, it's still, a 20-man infantry blob's 40 OC up to what, 60. There's nothing going to out. There's not anything really in the game that's going to out OC that.
Yep.
And what, 120 points, 110 points.
It's 120 points, and you can have, if you have duty and honor and a command squad with a flag, and you get all 20 guys onto the objective, assuming like the 5 command squad guys don't quite make it on, it's 80 OC.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. So yeah, it absolutely will dominate on primary, but it has to survive, and I think that's where the problem is.
But I mean, even I mean, I was more coming at it. You can stick 20 men on an objective, knowing they're going to get absolutely rinsed, but that's just going to take a primary off someone every single. There's, you know,
Yeah.
and I've had it done to me time and time and time, you know, time again. I'm looking at playing now.
You can see the wrecking ball of OC coming in. You're like, oh, I think I've secured that objective. There's 20 guardsmen just come sprinting out. You know, half of them get onto the objective. Like, no primary for you that time.
Exactly, and that's, you know, for 110 points, 100 and whatever, 110, 120 points. Yeah. You know, I'm playing around with my Raven Guard at the moment and going, well, actually, I can get, you know, getting excited. I can get 10 OC in, you know, with my jump pack assault intercessors. Oh, look at 10 OC.
Ooh, yeah, big numbers.
And then I go, well, yeah, but that's 40.
Yeah.
So even if, you know, and then you got move. So actually, you're going to have, you know, plus an advance. So that's, you know, even if they do get rinsed, they're going to stop, you know, the more primary denial, I think, is, you know, they've become almost primary denial, and as opposed to like a, you know, they're going to stand on the open and get tanking a load of shots.
Yeah, and it's almost it's opening up a conversation which I almost feel morally against it, because I am the blob guard guy. Like, I'm a yield guy. I like blob guard, but there's a huge conversation to be said there for 10-man squads. Yeah. You know, okay, you put 10 OC onto objective. Okay, well, I only need 5 guardsmen to deny that primary. So why am I? So I have to take a squad of 10. But why am I taking another extra? Why am I spending another 55 points to go from a 10-man squad to a 20-man squad?
Yeah.
If guard infantry now is its job is to run out in successive waves of primary denial, keep denying the primary every turn, just so that the tanks can do the actual damage, and then maybe turn 4, turn 5, you run out there and actually score the primary. Like, it's just denial, shoot. Right, now you've got nothing left. Now I can score. If that's the job, maybe 10-man squads is the way to go. And I know a lot of people are going to be saying, who is this Skinwalker? What have you done with Mordian Glory? But, you know, I always keep an open mind about these things. I definitely think it's an interesting conversation. Hopefully one, you know, if you're watching this video and you've got any thoughts on that, get it down in the comment section. Do you think, are we seeing not necessarily the death of the blob, but are we seeing the rise of the MSU 10-man objective screwer over guard squad?
Well, then combine. I mean, I think in that game, on the objective on my right, your left, and I'm sort of sat there and I've got the Silent King, 2 Doomsday Arcs, my blob at 3 Wraiths, the Technomancer and the Reanimator, and it's just like, well, yeah, but I didn't have that objective until 1 turn, I think, because
you were just 1 turn, yeah,
and that was just because you were throwing 20 man. So actually, I'm sat there going, right, this whole whatever giga blob of death is supposed to sit on that objective and have it, and you just go, no,
yeah,
because I
only needed like 5. I probably only needed about 6 guards on that objective to take it off you.
Yeah. So you know, they do it in a different way. So, you know, you can still have the blobs that are sitting on other objectives, but, you know, having a, you know, 2 or 3 20-man throwaway squads or 10-man squads that are, you know, that are literally just going to walk onto an objective and die, and you know that, you know, that's not a lot of point investment to you know, to stop someone's second primary objective.
Yeah, and there's only 4 turns where you score primary.
Yeah.
So even if you just do that, you know, do that 2 or 3 times on an objective, it can, you know, for low points investment, it can do a good job. I think one thing that is worth pointing out, we were playing on GW terrain, and after coming off WTC terrain, which is much denser, I think we kind of have. I know we kind of have talked about this a bit, but I think it has proven that GW terrain is very, very light. Now, it would be easy, and I'm sure we will get some people that are going to maybe think this or comment it. It would be easy to say, well, it wasn't a proper stress test because no one plays on that terrain. I think you'll find that a huge amount of tournaments play on GW terrain. I think in the UK, we play on a lot of UKTC, and we play on a lot of WTC, but for the vast majority of people that are going to be playing, around the world in their local events, the local GTs, and even big events like Adepticon. I'm pretty sure Adepticon, and again, correct me down in the comment section, but I'm pretty sure Adepticon, Nova, and LVO are all GW style terrain. So it is probably, in my opinion, I think it's the most common standard terrain map, and so stress testing the codex on that, I think, is actually quite a good experiment. It's not something you should dismiss. It's actually something you should go, oh well, yeah, the guards got absolute slaughtered because there wasn't as much terrain. It's like, well, okay, that's a factor you need to take into account when you're building your list. The first thing you should do is, what terrain is at the tournament? It's the first thing I Google. The first thing I check on an event pack is, what is the terrain layout? Because I'm going to build a list that's very different on GW to what's going to be on UKTC or WTC. So yeah, I think it's don't dismiss GW terrain. It's very, very relevant and important. But it's definitely a factor as well. That's what I'm saying. Don't dismiss it. Take it into account.
You got me thinking now. Definitely, I'm just looking at the terrain for LVO because Adepticon certainly.
It's definitely GW.
Yeah. Looking at the 24 pack, and that's not particularly full of terrain. So yeah.
Yeah. I think LVO used to do player place terrain, which is even. I know. We're definitely gonna start a conversation. Not now, but in the conversation, we're definitely gonna start a conversation because some people will die on the hill of player place terrain. And they are welcome to, as far as I'm concerned, because they can keep their player place terrain. One thing I wanted to touch upon, and I appreciate I have been waffling a bit, so I'm sort of going to ask. I'm going to phrase this as partially a question, throwing it back over to you. I felt like combined arms as a detachment, the lethal hits are the same, great, but one thing that sort of stuck out to me was I actually wanted to use the stratagems.
Yeah.
But in a funny sort of way, the stratagems were almost too good because there were loads of combos that I wanted to do, but I didn't have enough CP to do them. Like, I never actually got a chance to use reinforcements, which...
I know, I kept expecting that, and you go, oh, I've not got the CP. I've not got the CP. I've not got the CP. And I'm like, oh, we're okay.
Yeah, well, between smoke in my turn and then wanting to do the double order thing on that right flank.
Yeah.
I didn't have the CP. I was doing 4 stratagems battle round. I was doing 3 or 4? 3, sorry. So I was doing smoke, and then I was doing combined arms, and then I was doing coordinated. I was doing the one that lets you order tanks as infantry.
Yeah.
So I was only getting 2 CP around, but I was spending 4 essentially.
Yeah.
So I was doing a load of them, but at no point I never felt like I had CP for it. So yeah, it feels like it's much less about it feels like the stratagems are way more about orders and stuff and force multipliers than actually being damaged things.
Yeah, no, it was weird having, because normally, like historically, it would have been, I mean, before the nerf, it would be 2 CP reinforcements
Every turn.
It was every turn, and then it was. We're not going to talk about those dark days, so I'm still scarred by that. Honestly, 40k therapy is needed after that little.
I am convinced that someone at GW watched our videos, saw your salt levels, and you are responsible for the nerfs.
Oh dear.
Hashtag blame Simon.
So yeah, So, well, yeah, I don't feel guilty. If I've saved anyone from going through that on a regular basis, then. But yeah, the stratagems felt very, very different. That would, the two things that really stood out for me were the stratagems being, you completely unrecognizable from what you would normally play in the previous incarnation of it, and having to use the infantry squads differently.
Mm. I
So I think
agree.
that,
I
uh,
concur.
yeah. But actually, it was really fun detachment. It was fun to play against. I mean, a bit of a migraine when I'm working out about where all these orders are going, but
Yeah.
but that's really clever. It's fluffy as well. The tanks and the infantry squads sharing orders. So I thought it was really good fun, and I think there is definitely one to have a look at with mechanized guard to see how that would, if that's its natural home. To be fair.
So I have a. I was thinking one of the things. Speaking of orders and strategy stuff, one of the big things that we tested out was the Creed command blob, aka the Supreme Command Blob 2.0. So previously that would have been a Lord Solar Leontus. He is
Yeah.
so last year. He is so last year. It's all about Creed now. One thing that I came away from that game thinking was that the Creed command blob was good, but that I almost felt like it wasn't very efficient doing it on big tanks because the big tanks kind of had enough orders a lot
Yeah.
of the time. I was thinking, consider you do 5 tank orders, you could take 2 tank commanders and 2 Russes, and they order each other. That's self-contained. Then
Yeah.
you go mechanized. You take 5 mechanized squads, and
Yeah.
and then you use the Creed command blob to order all those chimeras.
That's quite certain. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
way yeah. It's like
Well, I
because chimeras are already great, spaffing out what 20+ shots a turn with between the lasgun array and everything.
all of a sudden, all those hunter killers all of a sudden become a little bit more interesting in
Eagle
range.
1, Box 2.
Right. Oh, tell you what. They were already very good, but all of a sudden you've got 5 that are now hitting on 3s and not 4s. It's yeah.
It's a bit
Um,
less Wile E. Coyote and his Acme rockets, and a bit more actually. Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, didn't even think about that.
because then you've got a blob, because you always want a blob. I think you've got a good 26 strong blob there, because you'll have Creed plus Command Squad plus Cadians.
If he's just going to sit there on your home objective
I
to
think
do that,
I think you sit there on the home objective, but I think with the way I think Guard are going to take more casualties now. Like I had to, I had actually planned to do this. It was part of my pre-game plan. I moved out with Creed like turn 4, didn't I? Because I needed the extra wave.
yeah,
And I think that's probably, I think I like the idea of the 20-man blob, so that I'm going to stick in my home objective, sit there for a bit, and then once I've lost like a few chimeras and a few squads, and I don't need all 5 orders, and I just need a bit more
yeah,
infantry
that's
pushing
true. Yeah,
forward,
yeah,
I can throw another 20-man blob into the
yeah,
fray.
grinder. Yeah, no, yeah, fair point. Give you that one. Always
Um,
let you know what you're talking about.
don't get too crazy. So we've talked. There's one other thing I want to raise. This is a controversial hot topic. I think a lot of people are going to disagree with us. I think a lot of people are going to be angry with us, Simon. But sometimes we have to tell the truth.
Yeah,
It's
no,
the elephant in the room. It is the Dawn Tank Commander. The Dawn Tank Commander.
I'm not convinced.
Not convinced.
At all.
Not convinced even slightly.
Yeah. What's it, 20 point extra?
30. 25 points over a Dawn, 30 points over a Tank Commander.
Yeah.
A Lehman Tank Commander. Doesn't do any damage.
No. I think that's always been the problem with Dawns, that they've got all these guns, and then they've not got the AP to really chew through anything that you want AP on.
Or the range, if you do go for the AP guns.
Yeah.
Or the strength.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have basically sort of come to the conclusion that when you're paying for a guard tank, you're paying for the main gun, and everything else is extra, including in a funny sort of way, until durability becomes its main job, which will bring us on to the regular Dawn in a moment. But until durability becomes its main job, I think what is the main gun? And I look at the oppressor cannon, and it's good. Like it's okay, but I don't think I've ever had an oppressor cannon blow something away in one go.
No, no, it doesn't. It really, really doesn't. We've tried Double Dawn. I've tried Double Dawn. I mean, all right, the previous battle report, they were shocking, but I mean, in completely the wrong detachment and build for them. But I think one Dawn that you park on an objective, and then you kind of say to your opponent, right, well, this is on an objective. It's got a massive footprint. Are you going to?
We're talking mid-board objective. I think it's important to clarify to the viewers. Not home objective, mid-board. Sorry, carry on.
I'm going to park it there. It's got a massive footprint. It's got reasonable OC. Now, you've got a choice. You're going to have to put an awful lot of shooting into that to kill it, which means you're not shooting that at my 4 or 5 Lehman Russes that have actually got a las cannon, and I think that's the other thing with the Dawn is it doesn't have a las cannon, it doesn't have a hunter killer, it doesn't, you haven't got those D6 damage weapons on it. Anyway,
it's got the strength, but not the AP, or it's got the AP but not the strength on the various weapons. There's nothing which is just strength 12, AP -3.
Yeah.
There's nothing like that. And you think AP -2 is enough, but then you get into a fight with something that's got like a 2-up save in cover and it's on a 3-up, and you're like, oh, okay. To be clear, I think the Dawn can do some work into like infantry. Not light infantry, like heavy infantry. Maybe it's taking a 3-up to a 4-up, and then every time you get a wound through, you splash a marine or something. Like, sure, but I just feel like you think it's going to be killing tanks.
It's really not.
Maybe we're lucky. Maybe I get a whole bunch of 6s to hit, and suddenly it's lethaling out the wazoo. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I think, I agree. I think the regular Dawn is better than the Dawn Tank Commander by far.
Because it fits. We talked about this. I can't remember if it was on. We're talking about the recon detachment and how that, how that works with the infantry squad against melee. And it's actually you've got your screen. You build your screens anyway. Your screens are going to be in your. And it's like that with the Dawn, where it's the role that it's actually suited for, which is going into no man's land, sitting on an objective. Its rule of blanking 1 damage.
Phenomenal.
It just goes right into it. So all of a sudden, actually, if I'm shooting at it with the Silent King shooting too many is all of a sudden, 1 hit or 2 hits, 1 wound, or the first one you can just blank. There's 6 damage just gone like that.
Yep. And the fact that you're going to smoke it, and then you're going to have a 4-pin save on it, because it's almost mandatory, and then you're going to have a blank, and then you've just got a 2-up save as well in cover. Like, it's just Dawns are really hard to kill, and the only way that you kill them is basically with mortal wounds. At that point, you're having to use a tactic to kill what's like a 500-point demon Primarch like Magnus and Angron, and you're having to use that kind of tactic to go after a 240-point tank.
Maybe death marks, because they seem to. I've been shooting death marks.
Simon's death marks are apparently good at finding the vision slit on tanks and shooting out tank commanders and stuff. Yeah. I think there's a couple of. I do want to throw a couple of caveats out there, because I don't want a bunch of, especially new players, to be looking down at their freshly built Dawn tank commanders going, what the hell, Mordian? What's going on? I was lied to. No, I want to make something absolutely clear. Fundamentally, the Rogal Dorn tank commander is a guard tank, and B, can do orders, and C, it's going to do firepower. It's a big metal box. Okay, so what we're saying with this is that we think the regular Dawn is better than the tank commander because, in isolation, looking at it on its own, because it's more focused on doing the job that we want Dawns to do, which is to tank. It is a tank in the sort of RPG sort of D&D sense. It is a tank.
Yeah.
But that the Rogal Dorn commander is good. It's still good. It's still a unit I would take. But it is not the second coming of Jesus Christ. It is not going to solve every problem that in your life, both on and off the table. It is just it is a solid unit that is decent. It's it's fine, but I think it's been overhyped.
Yeah, definitely. I think the thing is that like you said, the role that you want the Dawn to do is done better by a regular Dawn, and that's it. I mean, that is, and the tank commander will do it absolutely fine, but not quite as good as a point that's as a unit that's 30 point. And as we've already discussed, particularly in this detachment, when you've got one character being able to throw out 5 orders, actually you don't need the order either.
Exactly. You've taken the words right out of my mouth. I was about to say that. I had orders coming out my asshole, man. I didn't need the Rogal Dorn orders at all.
I could have borrowed them. I could have done.
Yeah, I could ship an order in your guys around. Yeah, yeah, totally agree. I think it's a good unit, but it's not an auto include. And if you put one in your list, you are not handicapping yourself at all. We cannot stress that enough. But it's not going to be. It's not a master key.
No, not at all.
So that brings us on to the venerable Leman Russ. I love it.
Oh dear.
I love it. I'm Team Russ, baby. I'm Team Russ all the way.
No, yeah. No, I'm completely with you.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
It's cheap. It's cheap and actually has, I would say, more relevant firepower because it's got the las cannon and the hunter killer missile and the main gun. And if you're like me, where it's vanquishers or go home, it's a hell of a main gun.
Yeah.
I know we had a conversation after the battle port. We might even mentioned it in the game, but where I was like, I feel like I would have done a lot better with triple vanquisher, and you were like, but I've got a 4 pinver, and it's like, yeah, but Simon, you only need to fail it once or twice in a turn, and I basically kill a Doomsday Ark because I'm gonna. How many words Doomsday Ark have? Like 14.
14.
Okay, so yeah, I get out of my potentially, and I'm not saying potentially in a meme way. I'm saying this is very much a reality that you, Sir Admiral, are going to have to get to grips with at some point. 6 vanquisher cannons.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that.
I get 1 through a Doomsday Ark. I take 10 wounds off it. Yeah. That's before I've had my las cannons, my plasma cannons, my hunter killers. Honestly,
I'm looking forward to that. I'm just going to rock up with 120 guardsmen.
Yeah, do you know what? I think I still, you know what? I think the Vanquisher can handle it, and I tell you why. Because each one of my Vanquishers has double plasma cannon, so they're getting an average of 6 shots per plasma cannon when they shoot one of your blobs. Because they get the D3, so that's 2, and then they have blast, and each plasma cannon has blast. So we're looking at an extra 4 shots per plasma cannon. Yeah, so they get to maybe steal a well-known in the UK at least well-known marketing phrase. I now consider the Vanquisher to be the ambassador's choice.
Oh Jesus!
Hopefully, no one from Ferrero Rocher watches this video.
You know, they might get sponsored.
Might do. I would love to. Ferrero Rocher, come on.
Randomly though, right? Just completely off piece.
That's okay. That's okay.
We had some friends come round for dinner the other week, and they brought us like a jar of moonshine that they bought to a Christmas, and it tastes like alcoholic Ferrero Rocher.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
that's dangerous.
Tell me about it.
He's only just recovered.
I was not feeling well yesterday. Let me tell you.
Amazing.
But anyway, yeah, that's not expecting to talk about moonshine Ferrero Rocher liqueurs today.
That's just the Mordian Glory channel's guarantee we will be off topic at some point.
But no, I completely agree. You know, 5 Lehman Russes. I mean, what did we reckon you could get? 3 Lehman Russes for every 2 Rogal Dorns. Was that where we got to?
Easily. So double Dawn, even without tank commander, double Dawn is 480 points at the time of recording. 3 Lehman Russ Vanquishers, which admittedly aren't actually the best thing to go into Dawns because the Dawns can blank them, but they can only blank it once. But 3 Vanquishers would take you back 435 points. And in a funny sort of way, with those Dawns, you are going to have to take into account the hidden tax of the Tech Priest entrances, which is another 90. So realistically, 570 versus 435.
So I'm thinking 1 Dawn is a sweet spot, and the rest Russes.
So we've been agreeing far too much in this video, Simon. So I am going to have to disagree with you at this point. I still like the double Dawn because, but I think I have learned something from the double Dawn, which is there's a temptation to put what like I did. I had like 1 Dawn on one flank and 1 Dawn on the other flank. I think that if you go double Dawn, let's say you go Commander and regular Dawn, just for example, just to have the self-contained sort of orderfication, I think they have to be glued at the hip. Because what I was finding is I would fire 1 Dawn at one target and it would whiff. But then if I fired 1 Dawn at another target, then it would do okay. But if I had fired both at the same, cumulatively they would have done enough damage to get the job done. And there was that point, I think it was around turn 3 or 4, I can't remember, when you had pushed out with Death Marks, Lich Guard. There was a big push. Yeah. And for the first time, the 2 Dawns actually concentrated fire in the same area of the battlefield. And they actually swept everything aside.
But they were shooting infantry though.
I went after your little bastard walker thing.
Yeah.
So what I did is I put both oppressor cannons because one wasn't enough. So I did double oppressor cannon into the stalker. It fucked off back to the Tomb World, and then all the little stuff went into various infantry and did great. Yeah. So I think that's the way you do it. You have to concentrate Dawnification. That's what you got to do. You got to concentrate Dawnage, spread it out, and I think it doesn't work. If you're not going to concentrate your Dawnage, I think I agree. But I think there is definitely something to be said for the double Dawn. Just you need to keep them together because I found this in the index and I found it in the codex. Lone Dawns don't get the job done.
No, I guess it depends what you're putting them in the list for.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, mine, you know, now is to go on an objective and do some damage play. But that's why it's there. It's not. They're not going in the list as damage dealers ever again.
Yeah.
Or not that. I'll rephrase that because that's a bit unfair. That's not why they're going in the list as a primary. It's you know, they're going in to hold an objective and do damage, and you know they could do some very decent damage, but it's just not damage you can rely on. And I would have to make sure that you've got, you know, Russes to pick up that slack.
Agreed. I quite like the idea of building, because I quite like building like mini armies within my list, like groups of units that work together, and I know they're always going to work together, you know, less extreme circumstances. But I like the idea of having one flank consisting of double Dawn, Tank Commander Dawn, and regular Dawn. Yeah. Maybe if I'm being, ideally 2 Tech Priests, I might cheap out and go 1 Tech Priest, we'll see. And then backing it up with a couple of infantry blobs. Maybe even 1 infantry blob. But the thinking is that if I'm facing a shooty army, the Dawns go first, just tanking the damage. They just go first because they're not going to get tied up in combat. So they just go first, and then the infantry's there as like a backup, certain objectives, screening out, whatnot. If I'm facing an assault army, the infantry blob goes at the front, absorbs the first charge from the World Eaters, and then the double Dawn blast away, and then they move on to the objectives. But I think that's quite a nice little contained army of like 2 Dawns, a Tech Priest, and a blob of infantry. It's going to set you back probably about 800 points roughly. Maybe not quite that much. But it's quite that is an objective lockdown in my mind.
Yeah. So I'm now thinking about a Dawn, a Tech Priest, and two couple of Chimeras with infantry squads in
That could,
instead.
yeah, that could be really nice. And
And
maybe,
again, because
and you could just have one Dawn, one tank commander. Tank commander gets like a plasma cannon for shitloads of AP, and then a block, and then a couple of chimeras and a tech priest, and that's even cheaper probably.
yeah.
But yeah, but I do agree. I quite like the idea of the Dawn spearhead in the right against shooting armies.
Yeah, no, I can see that.
Um, There's one last thing I wanna touch upon. I think it's a really important point. I've left it till the end because it's not specific. It's not guard specific, but it is very much tabletop related. I think that the biggest advantage you had over me in that game was not faction, was not list, was experience. Because you had, well, tell us a little bit about your journey with Star Shatter.
Well, to say on the video, I think in the nature of entertainment, I quite often bounce around different armies, different lists. That's naturally I get bored very easily, so I just kind of. But that Star Shatter list, I actually managed to took it to teams, as we know. We'll come back to that slightly, but then I had two practice games, 5 games at teams. So that was my 8th game with. That was the first kind of variation on the list. But I actually, stuck to the same list for 7 games to learn it, as more than I do so. So I was familiar with it, and then actually the changes that I made to the list, I was very clear why I'd made those changes, and they weren't much better as opposed to just, I'll try that, and then. So it just a bit of familiarization with a list is so important. And because I've naturally hop around armies, I think having that time and playing the same list, coming up 8 times makes such a difference to your confidence and your decision making and
Like the efficiency of your actions as well. Like, because you're not, and also you've already sifted out the crap because you know what works, what doesn't work. As I thought that, there was a few times in the game when I thought, oh, this is a cool combo, and they didn't pay off.
yeah. I think it's also, the bit that won me the game was the Silent King, drifting over, and that came up in my second practice game. And just knowing that actually, because that start, talk Star Shatter after this if you want. But knowing that you've got that in your back pocket to try and catch up on primary is huge, and just knowing that your list is capable, and that only comes with a bit of familiarization, and I think that was. I think that was probably the first time when we've been on the channel where I've actually had a chance to play a list that I played a lot.
Yeah.
It makes such a difference.
I think it does put things really into like perspective because normally what's kind of happening is we're having practice. When we do a battle port, it's like a practice game before I go to a tournament. Or I've been to a tournament and I'm like, Simon, this is the list amount of tournament I want to do a battle with so people can see it in action. And especially in that latter case, it's like, okay, so I've had the tournament practice and I've had the tournament games, and I'm going against you, who's maybe just run something new and interesting for, as you said, the sake of entertainment. Keeping things fresh and interesting, which is of course what you want to do. But it would be, I don't think it would be particularly great as if the next 3 months I use the exact same army in every battle report.
Yeah.
I would get very good with that army. But I think people would probably stop tuning in after a bit. But you never know. Let us know what you think in the comments. But yeah, I think experience is huge. I think that game demonstrated it beyond a shadow of a doubt.
And I think, again, I'm not by any stretch a great player, or pretend to be an expert with Star Shatter, but that little tweak where because I think everyone runs Spider and Hexmark. That's Spider and Hexmark goes around with the Silent King, Hexmark's OBSEC and Lone Op, and the Spider gives it. And I just found that it never really did anything. So I swapped them out for the Technomancer with the 3 Wraiths, which again, they're not an easy thing to kill. That's a very
Well
But it gave me
established that wraiths are difficult to kill.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you're not really going to shoot them. You know, it's not something you're going to waste your time shooting at. There's other but it just gave me that little bit of utility. So just having that, you know, 1600 points of the list had stayed the same, and just tweaking it because I had that bit of experience is such a big difference. You know, it really, really is.
I never even it never even occurred to me that you were going to do this float the Silent King over, because that's the first time I've had a secret mission. And
Yeah.
it never even occurred to me that, like, oh yeah, you could just like float the Silent King over at like turn 5 and you've done your secret mission. And that's actually like a really good tactic. And I think it's one that has, as you said, sort of, it came up in your second practice game. And then it's become almost like a go-to tactic now.
Yeah. Once it teams, and again that was in your wrap up video, the very first game we played against the guys, a really good team. When was it 3 up or whatever, and you know I think they finished second or third.
They came second. It was shout out to the Warhammer team Majority T3. I think they're ironically named because none of them were running T3 armies, but I did.
But same thing, and I just floated him all the way up, and all of a sudden that's a 20-point swing. That's four WTC points just on that one.
Yep.
And again, so that's the third time out of 8 where that's come in.
Yeah.
So yeah, shout out to having a little bit of experience.
I think it cannot be overstated, and I think it's something that a lot of experienced players, better players than you and I, will say is like they will just run the same list again and again and again and again, and like I think about that and I'm like, God, my instinct is, God, that must be so boring. They look like their 4th tournament with the same faction, with the same list, with like maybe minor tweaks. But when you actually, I think when you think about it, it's not super boring, because if you're doing that and like winning every game, it's quite nice to win games, especially at a tournament. There's obviously different context for that. Like somebody like, oh, Mordian's being a wacko and all that kind of stuff. But no, like, you're at a tournament, you want to go hard, you want to win games. And I'm sure there's a great deal, something I'm thinking about, there's a great deal of satisfaction with just having a well-honed blade and just honing it more and more and more and being like, getting to the end of a game and going, I played that exactly the way I should have done.
Yeah.
And just getting better each time and seeing yourself getting better each time. Yeah, I think there's a huge amount of credit that needs to be said to those players that do that.
I mean, it was the same for Adepticon last year, and I took Necrons and I took them in the Canoptech Court, and again I actually put some reps in there, and 4 and 1. Was it 4 and 1 or 3 and 1? 3 and 1, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it's a strange 4-game GT. It's 4 games in one day, so it's like an extended RTT almost.
So and that worked out well. So yeah, definitely get the reps in and don't piss around with your list too often. Give it some time to, cause I think the thing that I picked up was that sometimes it's the dice that does let you down, and if you could have a bad matchup, or the vice versa, you could have a really good matchup and the dice go your way and you think this list is absolutely tremendous, and you got to take your licks, to really understand what is good and what is bad. So yeah,
I think it's something I do want to touch upon for a moment. I think there is so much stuff in Warhammer that looks good on paper, just does not meet the expectation, does not meet the reality on the tabletop. And I think that's something that you see across all factions, and I think in a funny sort of way, it almost goes both ways. So sometimes you'll see a combo, and it's like, that is so unfathomably broken, but then it hits the table. I think, and I hesitate to say this because I think I could end up with egg on my face, but Elder, they have a number of extremely potent combos, but one of those combos is like basically a 10-man. It's warp spiders, but it's basically 10 1-wound models led by the equivalent of like a spaceman captain. And yeah, it's going to fly over, and yeah, it's probably going to do a lot of damage, but you kill it and it's like, well, there goes 400 plus points.
I guess that goes back to like our last little video like this we did about some of the combos you can do with mechanized assault. And on paper they look so good. In practice,
So expensive.
So expensive and so tricky and so easily can't, you know, and actually is it. So yeah, and to be fair, Star Shatter as well, because I know a lot of people. We played on. We talked about the terrain, but that list is nowhere near as competitive, you know. Because I think I say that when we're filming, going, it's not as good as people think it is because it's easily, you know, on GW terrain, it's great because it's like I can plot there and I can shoot 3 objectives, and you know you have to stand on those, and I can shoot you, and I'm +1 hit. But when we were at teams on the WTC terrain, then actually there's terrain and I can't see you, and I've got no maneuverability to get to half of you, then it's a completely different kettle of fish.
And it's like you've not got the melee to break through the walls to the unit that's hiding on the objective on the other side of the ruin.
Yeah. Or you've got to float Silent King round and his, you know, the Doomsday Ark on their 8.5 mile long bases, and
yeah. So yeah, I think it's there's definitely a few there's a lot of factors which I don't think people take into account when looking at things from a theorycraft point of view. And I think just bringing this background to Guard, because I appreciate we've been waffling on another hour, Simon. We've been waffling on.
Oh, yeah.
Standard procedure. I think there's a lot of stuff that in the Guard Codex, when we initially saw it, was like, oh my god, amazing! And there's a lot of stuff we saw in the Guard Codex and we're like, don't care. And now that I've played a few games with it and really got a feel for it, I've flipped my opinions on a lot of things. So, you know, for example, I was all about, you know, Dawns are the best thing in the world, and now I'm like, well, Dawns are fine, but I think I prefer Russes. And you know, I was thinking, I saw Recon and I thought Recon was rubbish, and now I'm looking at Recon and I think this is probably the best Guard attachment. And you know, right down to like, you know, small data sheets, like I'm looking at the different heavy weapon teams and I'm thinking, you know what, I think the Kachan one's the best one. And no one wants me. Everyone's like, no, Krieg. It's like, I think Kachan's the best one. I think it is. So yeah, that I think the sort of the ending note is theory does not always meet reality, and experience beats all.
Oh, so profound.
No, yeah. that could end up on a Guinness beer mat.
I don't know, I feel like it should be Kung Fu Panda or something now.
But I suppose we should wrap this up. Simon, thank you so much for taking the time out of your... I know you've been very busy recently as well, so thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule, for sharing your insights and your thoughts, and for allowing me to bounce some things off you. And also a big thank you to all of you guys that watched the video. Let us know what you think down in the comment section below. This is just like our opinions, man, and you guys are going to have your own opinions, your own experience, and your own metas. So share all of that down below. Let us know what you think is great and where you think maybe reality hasn't met expectation with the Guard Codex. We're not talking about quality control here with all the FAQs and errors and everything. But thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, as always, see you guys next time. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian glory hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing, truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members, so thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Alex Dengal, Bon Vert, Lord Pryor, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, Try Again Bragg, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Barney. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.